Hello again, and welcome to the latest edition of the Roy Williams Show. My name is Jones Angel, alongside the Hall of Fame head coach of the Tar Heels, Roy Williams, and we'll be talking Carolina basketball for the next hour or so. We'll be tackling some of your questions, talking about what has been a busy week for the Heels, of course, and a lot more. Thanks so much for being with us, and Coach, great to see you. And it has been a busy stretch here since you and I last talked. 2 games, a postponement since we last met on the show. Been a full gamut. Started a week ago on Tuesday. One of the tougher performances of the season for your team at Clemson, then a really impressive performance, particularly offensively, scoring 91 points, shot better than 50% from the field in the win over Duke on Saturday. And then that last-minute postponement of the Miami game on Monday. Certainly been a full week for you and your team.
Well, Jones, that's about as simple as it can be put, I guess. It seems like I had to ask you before we went on the air what night we played Clemson. It seems like it was about a year ago. But, yeah, we go down to Clemson. We had felt pretty good about ourselves. We had done some nice things, had won 5 of our last 6 or something like that. I'm not sure that's what it is. But and then go there and lay an egg. It was just, I was dumbfounded what happened, how we did it, just could not figure it out. Sunday and Monday of last week, I remember this now, 2 best practices of the year. Felt good, congratulated our kids because they were really starting to buy in on trying to get better on the defensive end of the floor. Even told them in the locker room before we went out against Clemson that I thought we were starting to really make strides. And then we went out there, and the only strides we made were backwards or sideways, but nothing going forwards. But it was not a good performance of ours. At North Carolina State and at Clemson are 2 biggest ones by far that I seem to remember almost every play in both of those games because we just did not do what we needed to do. They had much more of a sense of urgency than we had. They had gotten killed by Duke in the game right before that, and we were fat and happy or taking things for granted. I don't know. If I knew, I would have changed it beforehand, but that was not a good performance. Did nothing that I was happy about whatsoever. Have some good practices, got after them pretty hard after the Clemson game, spent a lot of time showing them tape from the Clemson game, go over and play Duke at Duke and have a good performance, a good win, score 91, beat them 91-87, and we made two or three big breakdowns of our point guards not getting back and giving us defensive balance because it was a 7 or 8 point game, but all of a sudden it got to a 2 point game and had to make 2 free throws to give us the 4 point lead. But that was fantastic. Came back, got pulled in the tunnel and said, you guys should feel good about what you did tonight. We'd take a big step forward before the Clemson game, then took a big step back. Now we're going back forward, but let's not take Miami for granted. I think that's what we did at Clemson, and you guys, I want you to feel good about it, but don't do any silly things out tonight. And then all of a sudden, yesterday afternoon at 5 o'clock, we're canceling the game. And so we did make some mistakes, and we're still paying for that and don't know what's going to come next. But so you're right, those it's hard to imagine. I mean, that is hard to believe. It's just 7 days. It seems like I started at 70 and now I feel like I'm 99.
Coach, before we talk about Duke, you did release a statement on Tuesday essentially saying that acknowledging guys made some mistakes. Those guys have acknowledged those mistakes and they're paying the price and time to move forward.
Well, it is. You can learn from mistakes, but your life must be lived going forwards, and that's what we're trying to do, and learn from the mistakes and make sure you don't make the same kind of mistake again.
Well, let's get back onto the court. Coach, let's start Saturday night, the game against Duke. It felt like 3 really impactful stats that I pulled out that I'd be interested in your thoughts on. Number 1, 28 points off turnovers. That was a season high for your team.
Yep. I think it was something I really believe we have gotten a little better defensively, not anything as quickly as I want us to or to the level that I want us to, but I think them turning the ball over and us getting it and going down and scoring was a huge factor in the game. I always say I want us to run so you don't have to play against a set defense, and I always say that bad shots or turnovers lead to runouts, and so we got some of those runouts that helped us get those 28 points.
Kind of to that point, 27 fast break points. Those two stats kind of go together. And, of course, the three-point shooting, 10 of 15 from 3, best of the season for your team, and that included Caleb Love and Kerwin Walton, those 2 players, 8 of 9 from behind the arc.
Yeah, they were both impressive. Kerwin 4 for 4 and Caleb 4 for 5. And Caleb's been shooting the ball very well in practice all the time. All of our shooting drills, he's second only to Kerwin. Every now and then, Andrew Playtech may get Caleb or something like that, but most of the time it's Kerwin and Caleb and Andrew in that top three. And yet you look at Caleb's numbers and you can't believe that because he just hadn't done it in a game. But he made big shots in the game. If he had done a better job of getting back in defensive balance like the point guard is supposed to do, it would have had the head coach would not have gotten as many gray hairs in the last minute of that game.
25 points and 7 assists for Caleb Love in the game. First Tar Heel ever to have those two stats in Durham against Duke, and the only two Tar Heels that had comparable stats, both those games happened in Chapel Hill, were Phil Ford and Charles Scott. So great company for Caleb to be keeping as far as performance in a big game. He just – now I'm sure it's easier when the shot is going in. He just looked more confident on the floor as well in what he was doing.
Well, you said it first. Your statement is it's everything you heard me say a million times. Everything looks better when a shot goes in. When it's your shot, everything really looks better.
Yeah.
And, he's trying to be a point guard. He's never played the point guard position in his life, so there's a lot of adjustments, a lot of changes, a lot of things he has to be aware of. But yet we need him. If he scores 25 a game and makes 4 out of 5 from three-point line, we've got a lot better chance of winning.
Yep. Coach, two more things about Duke, then we'll take a break. Second chance points, it was 11-4 Duke at halftime, ended up 15-15 at the end of the game. Much better job by your guys in the second half on the glass.
Yeah, the first half we just did a poor job of rebounding, boxing out, particularly Leakey, Armando, Garrison, RJ all had big ones that translated right into baskets for them. We didn't have those mistakes in the second half and turned it around for it to be a 15-15 end of the game, second chance points, and that was big for us too. And it's you go over and play over there, you know the rivalry, you know how much it counts, you know how many people's watching, and for 7 of our freshmen to be extremely important to us in that game was big for us. I
know, and you guys have dealt with this all year, no crowd. It was made a bigger deal just because of where this game was, but it didn't lessen the intensity. It felt like in that game. That was a Carolina Duke game.
That's what it was. I mean, there's a tremendous amount of intensity. Yeah, you'd like to have the crowd there, but we're playing the game. It's during the timeouts all the time because their daggum music was so loud you couldn't hear anything during that period. But no, I think that by this time of year we're in a situation where we understand that no crowd support or a crowd yelling against you either.
You referenced this a second ago. You talk a lot about being tough enough to knock down free throws and shots in big times. And at the free throw line, it had not started well in that game. But then Armando, Leakey, Caleb combined to go 9 of 10 down the stretch and big shots, all of them on the line.
Yeah, no, that's where you like to finish a game. And you want to make winning plays at the end of a game. And you have that responsibility to your teammates for making winning plays. And we talk about that to the youngsters.
So a great win for Carolina, 91-87. The final, Tar Heels get the victory in Cameron Indoor Stadium. We're going to take a break, come back, more to do with Coach. Soon we're going to get to your questions for the head coach of the Tar Heels as well. Plus, next scheduled game for the Heels on the road yet again. It will be in Charlottesville against Virginia. That's the next scheduled one right now. We'll preview the Cavaliers a little later in the show as well. It's the Roy Williams Show from Learfield, IMG College. 1. Back on the Roy Williams Show, my name is Jones Angel, along with the head coach of the Tar Heels, Roy Williams. And Coach wanted to mention, just before we get to some questions here from some Carolina fans, great to see Sterling Manley was dressed out before the Duke game, went through warm-ups with the team. He has not played for the Tar Heels since, the Sweet 16 matchup against Auburn in 2019. Yeah. So Sterling not quite ready to play yet, but clearly getting closer, and that's great to see.
Yeah, Doug and I talked about it. I said, I'll be fine with him warming up. It gives him another chance to get everything loosened up a little bit. I knew that I was not going to play him because he's not ready for that yet. But we got to get him going full court. And if we get him going full court and see some stability and conditioning out of him there, then we can move forward.
Coach, I wanted to we had some questions. We have a bunch of questions from Tar Heel fans, but this came from Scott Worley, and it's a three-part question. I thought it'd be a good one to tackle here in this segment. He's asking about the one-and-done era of college basketball. You've talked about this a lot in the last several years, but with some of the quote-unquote blue blood schools, Kentucky's having a tough year, Duke's having a tough year. He's just wondering if you think the combination of a lot of young players the pandemic year is the reasoning for some of these teams that are relying more heavily on freshmen, that they are having difficult seasons?
Well, I think you can use that as a generalization. It's different from each team to the other. You can have several freshmen if they're elite.
Right.
Zion Williams and R.J. Barrett, they were elite, and they were the leaders. In Cam Reddish, they had 3 of the top 12 picks in the draft. That's a different individual than a guy who's a freshman who's 50 to 100, that kind of thing. So that's one difference. The other thing, even if you get that guy that's the elite, or the guy that's 50 to 100, if he has 2 or 3 of those veterans to help him through that makes it so much easier as well. We play a lot of freshmen, but our really, really good teams have always had some of that senior leadership or some experience out there that was going to be good for everybody. But there's no cookie cutter formula out there that you can say this is going to be the best formula to make it to the NCAA championship.
It's interesting, even maybe before this season, one team that you had that was the most freshman dominant was maybe 06 with Tyler Hansbrough in that group. But they also had David Noel and Byron Sanders and Rayshawn Wes Miller. Yeah, I mean, they had some of those older guys that you're talking about.
We started 3 freshmen in the first game. We started Tyler Hansbrough, Bobby Frazier, and Marcus Ginyard in the first game. But those other guys had been through it, and David Noel was one of the best leaders I've ever been around.
Would you, and I know this is the NBA's decision ultimately, and it sounds like eventually they are going to allow players to go from high school to the pros. Would you like to see that ultimately become the decision?
Oh, I really don't care. I don't have any dog in the hunt. There's nothing I can do that makes a difference, and so I don't worry about it. If you want me to give you my opinion of what would be best for the players also. Now, they're the naysayers, all the agents and people that believe them say, oh, no, you got to get into pros to get your clock started. Yeah, and 2 years later you could be out.
Right.
So I think it would be best if guys went to college for a year or two, and I don't mind saying a year or 2, but there's no perfect rule for everybody. Zion, Kobe, LeBron, those guys didn't make mistakes.
Right.
But there are a lot of those guys that went that direction thinking they were going to be those guys that they have made mistakes. I don't know that college has ever hurt anyone. But it's not the rules we have, it's their rules. And so let's let them make their own rules, and if we have to make bigger adjustments in our game, we can do that.
Yeah, there's so many names that people wouldn't recognize of guys that went straight to the pros out of high school that unfortunately did not make it, and then you're put in a very difficult situation, to be sure. All right, we're going to take another timeout, come back more with Coach. We're going to have our Blue Cross Blue Shield 3 questions. That's when we return to the Roy Williams Show from Learfield, IMG College. Thanks so much for being with us here on the Roy Williams Show. The Hall of Fame head coach of the Tar Heels, Roy Williams, joining me, Jones Angel. And we just tackled a couple of questions. Those were all actually from Scott Worley, a Tar Heel fan who sent those in the last segment. And we're going to get to our top 3 questions this segment, presented by Blue Cross and Blue Shield of North Carolina, reminding you to practice your 3 W's, wear, wait, and wash, and they resolve to keep North Carolina healthy. Coach, our first question comes from Ruth Ann Woodley. She says she has heard you say that you'd rather spend several hours traveling to see or talk to a recruit in person than talk to him on the phone, so you're not enjoying the current recruiting climate as much. We talked about that here on the show a couple of weeks ago. She said, though, with that in mind, the pandemic must be saving you some time that you would normally spend traveling. She's wondering, how do you spend that time with your family, to yourself, with the team? How do you try to use some of those extra hours that you might have now since you don't have to go to different places?
A little bit of all of that. I think that going home is not bad.
Right.
That's not bad. You're not spending 2 hours on a flight and 2 hours to watch a game and 2 hours back or anything like that. So being home some, I think I've had more time with the team this year than any team that I've coached ever, just because we're not going out. So try to make sure that I'm giving them everything I need to be able to give them. And then, I put my golf clubs up so there's no playing of golf. So I'm not doing anything like that. Just trying to keep doing the best I can every day to be the best that I can be to help the kids, try to get to be the best team we can be.
Coach, this one comes from Taylor Plants, and Taylor's is specifically about the Duke game this past Saturday. Taylor was wondering, did you think there was a particular turning point in that game or a stretch in that game where you felt like your team took control?
No, but I think just the overall look at the big picture. I mean, we want to go inside with the basketball. That's the most talent we have on the team. We want to give them the most opportunities to score. Somebody says, well, but you can gain quicker ground by shooting three-point shots. Well, I've never seen a guy fouling three-point shots.
Right.
It helped us extremely when you look at the score for Matthew Hurt to be sitting on that bench because he was in foul trouble. So I think it really does go back to what I've always said. I want good balance. I want to make some three-point shots, but we've got to get the ball inside. And if we can get the other team's better players to play fewer minutes because of foul trouble, that's going to help us. And it's a pretty easy thing to figure out.
Coach, this might be a loaded question here from Brian on our final of our top 3 questions from Blue Cross Blue Shield. Do you have a time that you remember that you were the maddest you have ever been during a practice?
Oh, no. The good thing is I'm only getting at that level once or twice a year. So after 33 years, I'm probably below 50 over 33 years. But, no, I've had some that are pretty high level. You know, the volcanic explosions are about the same.
Do you? I would have to imagine each team is a little different as far as I need to be a little nicer with this group. I can push this group a little bit harder. Do you try to feel that out as you go along?
Not as much the team as I do each individual. Try to figure out, okay, how can I get the best response from this person? The team, they got to figure it out because we play and it says North Carolina won in this column and somebody else won in the other column. So they've got to figure that out themselves.
All good questions. Our top 3 questions brought to you by Blue Cross and Blue Shield of North Carolina, reminding you to practice your 3 W's. Wear, weight, and wash. We resolve to keep North Carolina healthy. More with Coach after this from Learfield IMG College. Welcome back to the show. My name is Jones Angel, along with the Hall of Fame head coach of the Tar Heels, Roy Williams. And a reminder, a lot of different ways that you can send us questions here on the show. You can send me a tweet at Jones Angel. Angel has 2 L's at the end. You can send me an email. It's at asktheheels@gmail.com. We'll gather those and ask some with Coach every single week. Again, that's asktheheels@gmail.com. Also coming up here in just a moment after we talk to Coach, you're going to hear some of an interview with former Tar Heel Kevin Salvadori. Remember that 1993 national championship team for the Tar Heels? And Adam Lucas and I had a chance to catch up with Kevin here recently. Had a great time talking with him. Hope you'll enjoy that. But let's get to some more questions first for Coach. Coach, this one came from David Klein, and he says he assumes that negative social media commentary can take its toll on players, but also might be difficult for coaching staff. And do you ever get tired of being told by strangers how to do your job?
I do get tired of it, but the good thing is with me is I never look on social media. My friends and family tell me when people are saying things, and I feel sorry for them because they feel like they have to defend me.
Right.
And I know after the Clemson game there were a lot of naysayers out there, and I'm the same guy. I'm coaching the same way. Got to change a little bit with the times. Got to change to fit our personnel. But I didn't look at that stuff in 05, 09, and 17. We won a national championship, and I'm not looking at it now and just trying to do the best I can every day. And, you know, it's people are going to say what they want to say, but unless they've been with your team, they don't have any clue what they're talking about.
Sure. Coach Michael Gaskin sent this one in. He said he's heard you often say that a lot of times you don't look at the score for a large majority of the game, and he just wonders, have you ever had a coach or a player actually tell you the score and go, Coach, actually it's 32-30 or whatever it might be?
No, I've never had that. The biggest surprise I've ever had is last year at Kansas in 2003, we're in the semifinals against Marquette with Dwayne Wade.
Yep.
And I knew we were playing well. But I didn't know how well. And all of a sudden I look up, that's my phone ringing, and I don't even know how to cut the daggone thing off. So we'll get through this. It'll be all right.
That's Dwayne Wade calling, saying, don't tell that
Wade,
story about the Marquette game.
That is, but I knew we were playing really well. But I never looked at the score a single time. And then I turn as we're walking off the court at halftime, and we are up 59-30.
Yep.
We're up 29 in the national semifinals at halftime. But what I do that for is because I don't want to keep looking at the score. I want to evaluate how we're playing without the score driving me. I mean, a lot of times you take a good shot and it doesn't go in, and sometimes you take a bad shot and it does.
Right.
Well, I like to get the good shots And so I try to evaluate how we're playing without being driven by that score. Now, I do look in the second half, and particularly the last 6 or 8 minutes of a game.
Coach, last question, and then we'll take a break here. And this one comes from, don't even have a name. Oh, Cameron, there it is. Young coach Cameron. Cameron says he's heard you talk a lot about grading tape in many interviews, but he's often wondered what that grading system looks like. Are there specific things players can do to merit a positive grade versus a negative grade? Does each coach grade one player, or does every coach grade every player on every play?
Well, it is really complicated. It's hard to even explain. But after every game, and generally that night, we stay a couple hours after the game, we grade every player on every possession, and we'll have anywhere from 3 or 4 of us to 7 of us. And I'm usually calling things out. Other people are calling things out. We have a couple of guys charting and keeping the scores that we're calling out. But it's very, very involved. I think it's something that helps our team, because after every game we say, you really did a nice job of this, but you made 4 mistakes on this. We'll concentrate on that. Let's not have the next game 4 more mistakes in that same area. So I do it for teaching purposes, and I think it helps us.
Coach, we're going to take a break here, and then Coach will rejoin us at the end to talk about Virginia. Listeners are going to hear a little bit of an interview with Kevin Salvadori, as I mentioned, a member of that 1993 Carolina team. Of course, your Kansas team faced Carolina in the Final Four that year, had faced Carolina in the Final Four a couple years earlier as well in 1991. Do you have any memories of that 93 Carolina team, the George Lynch, Derek Phelps, Eric Montross group?
I remember Donald Williams making every shot he took. That's
He
what I
did do that.
remember.
He did do that.
No, we were a good team. We had a great year. We were really good all year long, and we too, with Adonis Jordan and Rex Walters, had 2 guards that were really the strength of our team, different than now where our big guys are. But we felt like we had a chance, but we needed to shoot a better percentage. We needed to make sure that North Carolina at that time didn't go off on us, but Donald did go off on us. They were much stronger up front than we were, and we knew that our guards had to play great. But it was a great win for Coach Smith, and then I talked to my high school coach, and I said, let's stay around and watch Coach Smith win his second one on Monday night, and we did.
Certainly a great weekend for the Tar Heels. Of course, you remember Coach Williams' Kansas' team had knocked the Tar Heels off 2 years before in 1991 in the Final Four in Indianapolis. So you'll hear some of that conversation with Kevin Salvadori, and then Coach will rejoin us for the final segment of the show to preview the upcoming matchup with Virginia. That's on the Roy Williams Show from Learfield, IMG College. Carolina on the road again. It is Saturday at 6 o'clock, this time in Charlottesville, facing Virginia. And as Coach and I are talking, Virginia still plays one more time. They're going to play on the road at Georgia Tech on Wednesday night. But currently, Coach, Virginia 12-3, 8-1 in the ACC, having another very good campaign under Tony Bennett.
Tony just does a great job, gets guys to buy into the way that he wants to play. Excuse me. And Hauser, the youngster transfer from Marquette's having a great year for him. Clark at the point guard's really doing some big-time things. They've had some impressive performances. We got beat by 8 million points down at Clemson, and Virginia went into Clemson and beat them by 8 million. So it's a big-time matchup for us. We need to play great if we expect to have a chance to win. But that's okay. That should be our goal, was to play great and go in there. And, again, Tony just does a great job, and they're shooting more threes, making more threes this year than any team that he's coached that I can remember.
Coach, you may not even have thought about this yet. I don't know. But an unusual week certainly now for your team with anticipating playing on Monday and then not playing and everything that's going on. How do you – have you given thought how to manage this week leading up to the game?
Well, we've got a plan. That doesn't mean it's going to be good. But we were going to give them Tuesday off anyway, and so we did give them Tuesday off. And now we've got to get back and go to work Wednesday, Thursday, and try to get ready for Virginia.
So, again, it is 6 o'clock on Saturday evening in Charlottesville. Radio-wise, we'll be on the air at 5 p.m. to get you ready for Carolina and Virginia. Coach, as always, thank you for your time. Great to see you, and look forward to talking with you again soon.
All right, Jones, thank you very much. You guys have a great day.